Hi everyone, my name is Roland, and today I would like to show you a little bit of intro about what's possible when it comes to automating some of those dull, very boring processes in your business intelligence or analytical workflows. Now, once you automate those processes that we don't really like, you will have more time to upskill yourself, and from an organizational point of view, they can actually save money. But before we cover that, a little bit about me. I have more than a decade experience as a BI developer, analyst, you name that. And I also run my own company, Bilingual Analytics. Now, I'm a data platform MVP, and I do a lot of fun stuff with Power BI and some of the adjacent tools from the Microsoft technology stack. But let's be honest. You and I are here today mainly because of one reason. I am lazy. Now, I should rephrase that because potentially there are some future clients in the audience. I should rather call myself a master streamliner. So I really like to spend a little bit more time automating certain processes rather than doing that on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and just understand how I can streamline those boring, dull processes. Now, I also have to flag at the beginning of the presentation, please don't forget to evaluate the session. It's really important for me and for SQLBits to understand how can we provide a better experience for you. With all of that out of the way, let's agree on something. You probably heard and will hear a lot about Copilot, right? There's a hype around that, and it's really good. It can help us to head towards a predefined direction, keep the altitude in place, and all of that jazz. But at the end of the day, the reason why it's called Copilot is because it helps you with certain processes. It cannot fully automate a process. But what if I tell you that you already have a tool, access to a tool, that can work as a robot pilot? Any airplane fans, the movie fans in the audience? So I'm not going to lie, it's probably not that kind of an autopilot or robot pilot, but a tool that can help you to create some very sophisticated automations, flows in your BI or analytical workspace, as I mentioned before. Stuff like saving an email attachment to a dedicated SharePoint folder, for example. Kicking off a data flow, data set refresh, and communicating to the users that the refresh is now complete and they have the most updated data that's available to them. Not only that, but sending out monthly data snapshots for a bonus or a commission calculation. Now, any idea what is the name of the tool that I'm talking about? Power Automate, indeed. So, I only have 20 minutes, and I really wanted to make sure that I go through a couple of demos with you. So the next slide is the one that I'm going to call the wow time. It's either the live demo, so fingers crossed everything is going to work fine. I just tested it, and seemingly all good. And for the aviation fans, it's also weight on wheels, a very important piece of the puzzle when it comes to going with a new airplane. So if you haven't seen Power Automate before, this is where you're going to start with. I'm not going to talk about licensing, because obviously 20 minutes wouldn't be enough to talk about licensing for any of the Microsoft platforms or tools. But essentially what I really love about Power Automate is how easy it is to get started. So the first example that I mentioned to you is saving emails attachment. So think about receiving data from third parties, so it's not sitting in your data warehouse. Business users receive data from someone else outside of the organization via email in an Excel format. Very common issue, right? Now, on the left-hand side, if you click on templates, you can start exploring some of the pre-created, predefined templates that you can start using right now, immediately, without learning anything about Power Automate. All you have to do is just type in save email attachment. And just like that, you have a couple of options. You can stay within the Microsoft ecosystem, or you can start using Gmail or Google Drive and stuff like that. But for the time being, I'm just going to have a look at this save email attachment to SharePoint and delete the email. Because it is a template, all I have to do is use my credentials, log in with those credentials. You can see the SharePoint and the Office 365 Outlook connectors that we need to use. Click on the shiny blue button to continue. And essentially, I've got the automation up and running. So I can start fine-tuning these bits and pieces and click on when a new email arrives. And I'm just going to say when it comes from abc@xyz.com. And maybe the subject is daily data dump, something like that. I can use those predefined templates to create the automation. Once again, I don't have to write a single line of code. I'm just doing the clicky, draggy, droppy that we all love. And after that, we head over to the next section, where is create the file. So when the email comes, that's our trigger. If something happens, then what's the next step? Selecting whatever SharePoint site we are working on, and selecting the folder on that SharePoint file. Now, immediately, within probably 20 seconds, even with talking, I created an automation that saves the attachment or attachments from an email to a dedicated SharePoint site. Now, imagine if your company has someone, whether a BI professional, someone out of the college, or just some data conditioners, doing these kind of jobs on a daily basis. You pay them, what, $20, maybe on an hourly basis. They spend 5 minutes just to save one Excel file from an email on a daily basis. If we calculate with 200 working days, 5 minutes, it's close to like $300-400 per year. And you can save that just by creating this within 20 seconds. The next example, which is a little bit more complex or complicated, that I wanted to show you today, is going to be a process that many of us are going through every day, every week, waiting for the spinny thing to spin and just refresh data flows, refresh data sets. Not only that, but in some cases, business users are better equipped to know when they want to refresh their data. They know when new data came in. They can easily trigger a refresh. So what we're going to do today, creating an instant cloud flow, and I'm just going to call this report refresh. I'm going to select the Power BI button click. So imagine if you can actually add a button to an existing Power BI report and allow your users to kickstart the data flow refresh and automatically in the background refresh the data set. And once that's completed, send out a Teams notification to a channel or to an individual user that the data is now updated. You can do all of that with Power Automate. And let me show you how. So our trigger is this Power BI button clicked. So when someone clicks on the button, something is going to happen. So we're going to use the Power Query connector and select refresh a data flow. Now I'm going to select a random data flow just really quickly. And just with that, we have 2 steps: clicking on the Power BI button inside of a Power BI report and kickstart a data flow refresh. Now, what we can do, and it's really amazing, we can actually tell the flow to wait until that data flow refresh is completed. So we can be 100% sure that we are not going to send out notifications well before the data flow is actually refreshed. So I'm going to select, try to select the same data flow really quickly. And now, once again, without writing a single line of code, I can add a condition, because I know that sometimes accident happens and data flow may not refresh. So what I can do is I can add a quick condition and say that, you know what, when the refresh status of the data flow is a success, so essentially all good, we're happy, we know that the data flow is successfully refreshed, we can start the data set refresh that uses that data flow. So I'm going to type in Power BI and refresh really quickly. Refresh the data set. And once again, I'm just going to use the data set that's actually utilizing that information. So what we have so far, we are going to allow our users to click on a button, start the data flow refresh, wait for the data flow refresh to happen, and then refresh the data set. Now, when all of that is done, and let's just assume for the sake of this presentation that the data set is actually fully based on that data flow, so we can be 100% sure that if the data flow refreshed and it was a success, then the data set will refresh as well. We can add a Teams notification. So I'm going to Teams post. We can send a notification to a channel. Let's say, imagine this is a weekly sales, daily sales, or whatever type of report that people are using. We can send that notification that everything is good to a channel. And let's say that I wanted to pick the daily sales team and sending a dataset update channel or a notification to the dataset update channel. And I can easily write, hi team, and I can pick up the data flow name from the dynamic content, is now refreshed, all good to use the data Roland. Now we're done with the if yes option. So if everything goes well, we refresh the data set, we send out a notification to the users. But what happens if something goes pear-shaped? We have the option to just send a notification, once again, Teams post, to the BI team. Now let's just say that it's going to be a chat with a Flowbot. And let's just type in my name. And let's just say data flow name was failed at end time. Please have a look. Once again, within 2-3 minutes, we were able to create an automation that allows business users who are using the report to refresh the data whenever they deem that it's necessary. And we also send them a notification that the data is updated and they can start utilizing the report based on the newest, most up-to-date data. You as a developer, a business developer, or the BI team, analytics team, doesn't really matter how we want to call it, don't have to spend time waiting for the spinny thing to spin at the data flow and the data set level. It's all handled inside Power Automate. And this is how you save time to learn more about DAX or data visualization or any of the topics that you hear here at SQLBits. Now, one more thing that I wanted to show you is a process or an automation that's very, very complex. So far, these two examples are in a sense siloed or just part of a full process, right? So it's not a full-blown automation. But what I wanted to show you today is an absolutely automated access management automation. So what it does, I'm just going to really quickly open this up. One of the things that as a Power BI report developer you have to face is not just creating the report and publishing it, but making sure that users can access it, right? Whether it's in a workspace, whether it's an app, or just the model itself, you have to be 100% sure that you share that with the right audience. Now, you also have to monitor who has access. You also have to monitor potentially approvals if you work with a large company, making sure that only those get access who are already approved by the manager, for example. Maybe you also have to document that for audit purposes. Now, this process actually uses Power Apps, Power Automate, SharePoint, and obviously Power BI. But essentially what you can do is create a Power Apps app that's going to help us to initiate the access request, so users can click on a shiny button and start the full approval process. So when they do click on a button, we can pick up their details, who is the user, who is the UPN who clicked on that button, pick up the details so we can understand their manager, who is the manager, and start an approval process inside of Power Automate. So you don't have to manage that outside of the Microsoft ecosystem. You don't have to manage emails of users sending you a request, and then you send an email to their manager and stuff like that. And if the approval goes through and the manager approved the access, you can add the user, once again, automatically to an Entra group or an Office 365 group. Managing access in a workspace level is obviously easier with a security group, and also send that notification to the user. Once again, if their access was approved, they're going to get a notification that, hey, someone approved your request at this stage, and now you can access the report using this link. And as I mentioned, you can also create a CSV table and share that information based on who approved the access or the request, when, and any additional comments. So very rich information, just to make sure that whenever you get audited, you actually have some sort of a documentation on why a certain user get access to that dataset, database, or workspace. Now, if it wasn't approved, so it was rejected, the request was rejected, a different kind of notification can go out to the user, once again, in Teams. And something that we all hate is waiting for those responses, right? So if you have to wait 5, 6, 7 days just sending emails back and forth and no approval, no rejection, you can also terminate the flow after a certain number of days. So what I set up here, after 5 business days, if nothing happens, just terminate the flow, send out a notification to the user that it wasn't accepted nor rejected. So essentially they have to talk to their manager or whoever needs to approve that whole access request for them. And all of this can be done with or without writing a single line of code. So you don't have to learn anything new, you just have to log in and use your login details and automatically set up all of this. Because my time is running up, I only have 1 more minute left. A really quick summary that I wanted to talk to you or share with you. Make sure to explore some of the adjacent tools in the Microsoft tech stack, not just Power BI or Fabric, because they can significantly enhance your workflow as someone who's working with data, someone who's working with Power BI. If you're just getting started, make sure that you use Power Automate templates. It's a really good start, and you can start exploring what's possible. All of this is going to help you to analyze more and massage less of your data. And most importantly, you can start now. You can already log in, start working with Power Automate, and make sure that you can streamline your processes. Now, with that said, again, thank you so much for joining today. Those are the places where you can find me as Bilingual Analytics, and most importantly, scan that QR code and make sure that you evaluate this session and all the other sessions as well, and you can win really, really good prizes. And I don't know how much time I have left, probably not anymore. Perfect. Then if you have any questions, you're going to be able to find me downstairs at the Ask the Expert lounge as well. So thank you so much for joining today.